Today's video is all about the most shocking and interesting court cases that have caught the nation's attention. From the famous O.J. Simpson trial to the scary Ted Bundy case, these stories are full of drama, mystery, and shock value. Join us as we get into the details of these exciting trial stories and find out what really happened with some of the most famous crimes in history. O.J. Simpson. We would be wrong to start our list with a case that wasn't called the trial of the century. We're talking about the grandmother of all courtroom trials, Orenthal versus the people of the state of California's Simpson James. A former NFL running back named O.J. Simpson was charged with 2 counts of murder for killing his ex-wife, Nicole Brown Simpson, and her friend Ron Goldman in 1994. The whole country was on the edge of their seats. In addition to having a famous suspect defended by a famous group of lawyers known as the Dream Team at the time, the case got a huge amount of attention from the media. The coverage was so strong that it slowed down the trial many times, and it took 11 months in total. It became illegal for witnesses to give their stories to tabloids, so they couldn't speak at the hearing. Picking the jury was a controversial process because it was hard to find possible jurors who could stay impartial because of all the news coverage of Simpson's arrest and the murder case in general. During the trial, 10 jurors were fired for different reasons. Only 4 of the original jurors were left in the final group. It's also true that this trial brought the whole country right into the courtroom by showing it on TV on Court TV and other news networks. After months of hard court hearings and conflicting testimony, Simpson was found not guilty of the crimes, which shocked people all over the country. Ted Bundy. Some people still think of the O.J. Simpson trial as the trial of the century. But Ted Bundy's trial is famous for being the first trial to be shown across the whole country on TV. Bundy wasn't the first serial killer in the United States, and he won't be the last. But many people were interested in the charming psychopath for some reason. Many young women were interested in Bundy, who was thought to have movie star good looks, even after he was arrested for killing several people and sexually assaulting others. While he was in jail, Bundy got hundreds of love letters from women who wanted to meet him. Also, young, attractive women would often line the rows to try to catch a glimpse of him. The interesting criminal chose to defend himself in court, and one of the most memorable parts was when he asked his girlfriend and supporter of his innocence, Carol Ann Boone, to marry him while she was on the stand being questioned. Bundy was on trial more than once, but he got out of a courtroom in jail before he was caught and put on trial for the last time. In the end, his actions led to 3 different murder convictions, and he was all given the death penalty. In 1989, he was put to death by electrocution. Casey Anthony. As soon as Casey Anthony was arrested for reportedly killing her 2-year-old daughter Kaylee in 2008, the whole country became very interested in the case. A young mother shocked the whole country with her strange and often contradictory stories about what happened in the last few days and hours of her daughter's life. Many people could tell Anthony was hiding something because she kept up a lie for months about having a job she didn't have and made up a story about a fake nanny taking Kaylee. Any news source could report updates to the case several times a day, making the trial a media circus. It was shown live on cable networks, and Anthony was quickly called the most hated mom in America. Anthony didn't report that her daughter had been missing for a whole month. In 2011, she was put on trial for murder, and the death sentence was an option. In court, there was evidence of questionable internet searches, forensic proof that a body that was probably decomposing had been in Anthony's car trunk, and false claims of sexual abuse. The jury thought about the murder charge for almost 11 hours before finding her not guilty. However, They did find her guilty of 4 misdemeanor counts of giving false information to police, though 2 of those charges were later dropped. Everyone in the country was shocked by the decision. George Zimmerman. The case of George Zimmerman became a national sensation thanks to Florida's controversial self-defense laws. The media covered it extensively, and civil rights groups officially called for justice. In fact, Zimmerman wasn't arrested until 6 weeks after he killed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin and said it was in self-defense. This was because of public pressure on the police. Martin was walking home that night, February 26, 2012, after getting some snacks at a nearby convenience shop. Zimmerman, a volunteer with the neighborhood watch, saw him and thought the kid in the hoodie looked sketchy. There had been 402 calls to the police between January 1, 2011 and February 26, 2012 about small crimes happening in the area. Zimmerman, who had a history of calling the police to report things that looked fishy, did so. Not a lot of people know what happened next. The person who answered the phone at 911 told Zimmerman to stop following Martin. When the call ended, the two got into a fight that turned violent, and Zimmerman shot and killed the 17-year-old, who was only 70 yards from his house. As the trial went on, people all over the country were on edge. Some said the shooting happened because of racism, while others supported Zimmerman's claim of self-defense. There was evidence for 3 weeks, and both the prosecution and the defense had a lot of expert witnesses. In July 2013, the all-female panel found Zimmerman not guilty of any crime. There were protests across the country and talks about getting rid of Florida's Stand Your Ground rule after the verdict. Scott Peterson. People all over the country were shocked when Laci Peterson and her unborn child were killed. In 2002, she went missing on Christmas Eve. At the time, she was 8 months pregnant, had a beautiful smile, and seemed to have a great marriage to Scott. Even though Peterson told the press that he was heartbroken about his wife's sudden disappearance, he didn't show much emotion. He didn't cry out for help in the media or lead search groups. Even so, he wasn't even close to being a suspect in the eyes of Laci's family early on in the process. But the detectives had their doubts. Soon, proof showed that Peterson had several affairs while married to Laci. The most current one was with a woman named Amber Frey. Frey called the police when she found out that Peterson was a person of interest in his wife's missing. Frey found out that Peterson had talked about being a widower up to 2 weeks before Laci went missing. On April 18, 2003, he was arrested. Peterson's trial lasted from June 2004 to March 2005 and had a lot of shocking turns. There were 3 different forms of the jury panel, and jurors were taken out for different reasons during the deliberation process. The final jurors heard from a whopping 184 witnesses over the course of 5.5 months before finding Peterson guilty of killing his wife and unborn child. He didn't move as he was given the death penalty for his actions. While appeals are still being worked on by Peterson's defense team, he waits for his fate on death row in a California jail. Timothy McVey. The blast in Oklahoma City was a terrible event that sent shockwaves through the whole country. The news media were crazy about covering the events leading up to the terrorist attack in April 1995. On that terrible day, Timothy McVey, a 29-year-old survivor of the Gulf War, and his partner, Terry Nichols, set off a huge truck bomb in front of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. 168 people were killed in the explosion. 19 of them were children. 6 were in the military. 99 were federal workers. 8 were police officers. And 2 were pregnant women. The attack was quickly called an act of domestic terrorism. It was thought to have been done in response to the government raid on the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas, almost exactly 2 years before. The jury found McVey guilty on all 11 counts of his federal indictment after hearing from 160 witnesses over 22 days. His emotionless reaction sent chills down the spines of everyone watching. The judge gave McVey the death penalty because that's what the jury said should happen. After several unsuccessful pleas and unplanned delays, he was put to death by lethal injection on June 11, 2001. McVey said that his only regret was not destroying the whole federal building in his attack. He said this in one of his last comments as his execution date got closer. The Menendez brothers, Lyle and Eric Menendez, were good-looking, sporty, and wealthy. So when the boys were accused of killing their parents in 1989, they became very famous very quickly. Police say the two shot their rich parents and then spent their money before being caught. On the other hand, the boys said they had been sexually abused. Television producers jumped at the chance to make the story into a soap show. Court TV cameras caught the whole hearing for the first time in 1993. During discussions, the jury couldn't agree on anything, so the judge threw out the case. Both sides got ready for a second fight. People were so interested in the show that the LA District Attorney's Office got dozens of calls every day from people who saw it with tips for how to bring the brothers to justice. Millions of people had been following along by the time Lyle and Eric were found guilty in the second trial in 1996. What do you believe about these well-known trials? Which case shocked you the most? Do you agree with the results? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Remember to like and subscribe to our channel if you want to see more interesting true crime videos. Thanks for watching.